Hello, this is the first video in the free motion quilting lessons. I use that term loosely. For starters, if you want some very detailed and very good information, Leah Day has an awesome website. I am not as good as Leah Day, will never pretend to be, but this is just for people that need to get over the fear of free motion quilting and some ideas on how to set up their machine. The key to free motion quilting is always practice, practice, practice. So, sorry, I started my timer. That's what you see me doing over here. My videos can only be 10 minutes long on YouTube. So if you hear that timer go off, then time's up. Okay, the very first thing that you're going to need, and I'm really hoping that you can see this. Okay, it looks like it. The very first thing that you're going to need is a free motion quilting foot. This foot has the hole for the needle, and this is just mine. Every machine's going to look different. This bar rests on the bar that holds your needle on. So it has a spring in it, in here, that will allow it to move up and down a little bit. So you can see that movement here. And it will still hold the fabric down, not quite as firmly as a regular presser foot, but it holds the fabric down enough, but you can still see where it's going. I know, I think Leah Day or one of the other quilting website video making people, how's that for technical, cut off the front of her foot here, this front circle, so she could see where the needle was. I don't have a problem with that. And I know some of the other people that have been following along with Cindy and Fluffy Sheep Quilting are having a hard time. They don't like to go backwards because they can't see where it's going. And I think that comes with time, with practice, because like I said, that is the key. The other thing you want to do to your machine is put a straight stitch. You just want a regular straight stitch. You need to set your stitch length to 0. That will let you control the length of the stitch by how fast or slow you move your hands and how fast or slow the pedal or the needle is going up and down with the control of your pedal. So stitch length to 0, straight stitch, free motion quilting foot, and then feed dogs. If your machine allows, drop them. Not all machines allow for feed dogs to be dropped. If you can't, try free motion quilting and leaving them up. That's okay. For this demonstration, I'm actually going to leave mine up. And I've not had a problem with that. I will sometimes drop them and sometimes I leave them up. It just depends. My machine kind of is a pain in the butt to get the feed dogs back up. It doesn't just have a switch you can flip. It's an older machine. But so if you can lower them, try it both ways and you can decide which is best for you. And then if you have the needle down function, utilize the needle down function. It will definitely come in handy a little later on. It is something that you will, if your machine doesn't allow it, there are ways around it, and I will talk more about that later. If your machine allows needle down, then definitely utilize it. Let's see, the other things that you will need. I think that's it for your machine. The other things that you will need are, well, you could be like me and have a great box of candy corn next to your machine, which I eat all the time, this time of year. And then I want you to, well, that's not good to try and eat and do a video, is it? Okay. I want you to do some sample pieces. Now, when I did my sample pieces, and I always do this, I do at least one of these for every quilt. And generally speaking, you know how you end up with like an extra block or you end up with extra pieces off the end. But I do it with the same fabric as what's in the quilt. So you'll see my sample pieces here. I have the various different, now I made more than one for a couple of reasons. I did it for video purposes, and I also did it because I wasn't sure. I want to try and use red thread, so that these samples and practice pieces will show me whether the red thread is going to work well in all of these. And I put white on the back because there is some white in my quilt as well, and it will help me decide whether I like the white on the red, or the red on the white and the red on these various fabrics. So make up some sample and use the same batting as what's in your quilt. See, if you use the same things in your practice pieces as what's going to be in the quilt, when you sit down to do the quilt, you kind of know what to expect. The only difference at that point is actual size, the size of the quilt that you're maneuvering. So, and we'll talk more about that later, Hadley, I promise. The other thing that I have are my gloves, and these are, I think I told Hadley that I use gardening gloves, and I started with gardening gloves, and these are the Fons and Porter quilting gloves. There's no difference between these and the gardening gloves. The only difference I've noticed is I kind of have small hands, and these are a little bit smaller and a little bit thinner of a fabric, so they don't get in my way. Like, they're not fiddly as much as the gardening gloves. The gardening gloves were a little fiddly, or more fiddly. They got in my way because they're thicker. So find you a pair of gloves you like. Now, you know, Machingers is something that a lot of quilters recommend. Apparently they're thinner and grippier, and they feel more like your regular skin. So get you some gloves. And let's see. Oh, the only other thing I was going to talk about is the space to the left of your machine. This, you know, to the left. You need to have enough space over there to support the weight of the quilt you're working on. Now, I have a really large quilting table, so I can maneuver my machine around and get it, you know, if it's bigger than where I currently have it, I can just move my machine over to the right and have plenty of space on my quilting table. Of course, I have to clean some junk off, but I can. But if you don't, then try putting an ironing board up to the left of your table, the same height as your table. That will pull off some of the weight, because what you don't want is assuming this is a bigger piece, you don't want pull from your needle down, and you don't want to have to constantly be holding it up either. You want to be able to move here, but you can't have drag around your quilt. So the quilt will lay in your lap in front of the machine, and to the left of your machine on the table, or whatever it is that you have on the left of your machine. Okay, so I think you should be all set to get started. And in the next video, we will talk about starting and stopping, and then we will talk about tension and speed and that kind of thing. And we'll go from there. So on to the next video. Thanks.